This is KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit digital resource. We're produced by Charitable Communications. We'll tell the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. We are happy to be back at the Plaza Library for our monthly sessions out and about in the community. It's great. The library is packed. It was hard finding a space. Bobby and I were looking around going, where do we go? And it's not even Super Bowl parade day, so people weren't even here trying to get a glimpse, even though they were way off the route. We have to give a shout out, of course, to our world champions. We are always happy to salute great things in the city, and particularly we have loved through the season bringing you different stories of different players who are engaged in helping in various ways in our community. Yeah, they're great on the field, but it's really wonderful to share their joy and their success off the field. So a shout out. We're also celebrating this month, Black History Month, and a little bit later in this broadcast, we'll be talking about some great organizations that are doing things in the Black community. In the meantime, though, we're joined by our friends at After the Harvest. Mariah Friend, volunteer coordinator, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
And Zach Callaway, who is Gleaning Network Manager.
Hi, thanks for having us.
That has to be one of the greatest job titles I think I've ever heard. Gleaning. What does a gleaner do? Maybe that's the best place to start.
Yeah, so gleaners go truly after the harvest, hence the name, to go and pick up excess fruits and vegetables from the field. And specifically what we do is then take those to agencies around the Kansas City area who can help distribute and serve them to hungry folks in our community.
Can you give us a little history of the organization and how this idea started?
Sure. So our executive director, Lisa Ousley, she previously worked with a national gleaning organization, and then in 2014 decided to start After the Harvest to focus more locally on our farm network and then distribution within our local area.
And you all have a fairly small team to pull off this tremendous task. Tell us a little bit how the organization works, Mariah.
Right, so we have about 6 full-time staff members. We actually have an office in Midtown in the VFW building. It's kind of our headquarters. And then we have a couple of part-time seasonal employees that actually lead the volunteer groups out in the fields, orchards, community gardens, really during the growing season to help harvest that extra produce, and then we donate it. And actually, Zach and I both started out as one of those part-time seasonal gleaning coordinators is what we call them. So it's just a really great entry point into the organization, so they help us out a lot. And then we have a development director, an admin manager, communications director. Am I leaving anyone out? We already talked about executive director. Yeah, so we're small,
talk about the boss.
Small but mighty.
But you have a robust core of volunteers. Let's talk about that aspect of the organization and what that means for you as the team in the office.
Absolutely. I mean, there is no way we could do the work that we do without our volunteers. This year, the last season, we had about 800 volunteers donate more than 4,000 hours of service, and they are out in the field bright and early. We usually start around 7:30 in the morning during the gleaning season to avoid the heat. So they drive out to the different locations that we coordinate with local growers. They're there picking, whether it's green beans, apples, strawberries, chestnuts. I mean, they're really doing a lot of work. And we have groups of about 20 come out, and we'll tell them, listen, even if you're only here for 3 hours, there's 20 of you. That's 60 hours of labor that a farmer just could not afford to get every little bit out of this field or garden. And so it really does make a huge difference.
Where are these gardens? Where are you all finding this produce?
Yeah, so our network is really about 45 minutes north, south, east, west of Kansas City. Last season, we went as far north as Maryville, and then as far south as Paola, Wellsville. We went out to Lawrence, almost to Topeka this last year, and then east towards Powell Gardens, towards Oak Grove, kind of that area that way. And then it runs the full gamut. So we work with sort of large farms. We work with small community gardens, church gardens. We work with a lot of U-pick orchards and berry patches who might have extra after the weekend's pickings, that sort of thing.
How do you make those connections?
So we do a lot of phone calls, a lot of just a lot of meeting with folks. One of our big connections is through farmers markets. So we will go and pick up excess at the farmers markets, and that's a great way to get to know our local growers. And then it's really just a wonderful community. So they all sort of know each other and talk, and then we go to a lot of their events and just get to know them because they're a great group of people.
And this is going then and getting extra stuff that they're not able to sell, or...
Correct. So, so for our gleanings, it truly is either excess that it just didn't make sense from the market value to put the labor in to go and harvest it. Sometimes we'll pick up seconds, so maybe the size wasn't quite right for the market, or it had an odd color, perfectly nutritious, perfectly safe to eat, just doesn't sell well at the market. So we'll do that. And then we do have growers, gardens, farmers who will grow specifically for us and will let us get the first pass. And that's really just the best. That's
really cool. Shout out to those folks.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you work at all with area markets and grocery stores? And I mean, sometimes there's that bump and dent apple that they don't want to put out, which is perfectly delicious and able to be eaten by somebody who needs food.
So we have done that in the past. Currently, we are working with harvesters, so we are their largest local donor of produce, and they have a pretty robust grocery store pickup campaign, and so we've currently sort of let them handle that, and then we've taken the farmers markets and directly from the farm. So
how did that relationship with harvesters come about? Has that been since the beginning?
Yeah, I think it has been. I think it started out with just two on our team, our executive director and the program manager at the time, and they were actually housed within Harvester. So that relationship has always been very good. It's been deep. And then, as we've grown and expanded, I'll let Zach talk a little bit about we have a truckload program where during the off season and really all year, we bring in semi-truckloads of fresh produce from all over the country. Things that we can't grow here, things that we just can't grow to scale here in the Midwest, and then all of that is really distributed through harvesters.
Yeah, so it's just a wonderful way to sort of partner and complement our gleaning program. For anyone who was out at the parade yesterday, it was very clear this is not a good time of year to be growing produce.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, it's a little chilly in this winter time, so how do you keep things going? It's through these truckloads that you're able to access?
Yeah, right. So we are able to bring in, from the West Coast, from the South, cabbage, potatoes, carrots, onions, a lot of stuff that we can't grow this time of year. And then also it helps to supplement during the summer as well, just to be able to have that 40,000 pound truckload to be able to distribute to our partners.
All right, let's take the example of a lone potato. Lone potato comes to Kansas City from a truckload out on the West Coast. Tell us about that potato. What's that potato's journey through after the harvest? Mr. Potato, Mr. or Miss Potato.
Yeah, so the potato family.
There you go.
Sure. So they would be boxed up and then brought in, across the country to Kansas City. For our truckloads program, it would go through harvesters, so they would receive it, and then they distribute it sometimes through their mobile pantries at different sites with a lot of agencies that we also deliver to directly. Or it might go to their floor to be picked up by agencies as well, who can then distribute it through their pantries.
What about the impact? How many folks are you helping through these efforts?
Yes, so last year, including our direct distribution, where we take directly to the agency, we served 98 different agencies locally, and then through our partners with harvesters, combined we were able to serve 367 agencies in the Kansas City area.
And when we talk about agencies, I just want to kind of break that out a little bit for people. We use that term. A lot of people might not know what that means. So it's just a way for us to say it's not only food pantries, it's also community kitchens where they might be receiving fresh produce and then processing it and providing hot meals for the homeless community. We work with several domestic violence shelters in our community that are serving women who are seeking shelter there. We're starting to kind of work with pantries that might be housed in a school. We work with a lot of faith congregations that have pantries that they use to kind of distribute that food out into the community. So agencies is just kind of that umbrella term for us, but really it encompasses any place that is really serving food to the community. We want to make sure they have the healthiest food available. We want to make sure that there's access for everyone, not just for people that can afford it. But, we know if you've ever volunteered at a food pantry, the majority of what you'll see is, the boxed goods, the canned goods, because those
non-perishables.
Those are shelf stable, and those are important. But we just want to make sure that we're the ones that can then provide the added benefit of that fresh, healthy produce. So that's kind of when we say agencies, that's kind of what we mean.
You look like you were about to jump in on that agency talk.
Well, I was, and I was just going to, also mention we've started to look at the nutritional content of what we're serving, and you look at just the variety when you can get, greens and black and red berries and sweet potatoes. When you get that full rainbow, you're getting vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, calcium. You're getting sort of the full spectrum of nutrition that you might not have if you're eating noodles or soup, sort of those canned, non-perishable kind of meals.
So you're tackling that whole idea of food desert. We hear that term kicked around. Your efforts, are we knocking the wall down there a little bit for folks who can't get produce, which is so important? You said nutritiously.
Yeah, I think that's a hard thing to measure in our community. We're kind of at the perspective of being the providers of that emergency food when people are really seeking help, and it's usually short term. We actually did we paired with KU with one of the doctors there to kind of do an outcome study, and we went to the different agencies and we interviewed clients, and we were actually able to measure with something I geek out about it. It's called the Veggie Meter, and it's this little non-invasive thing that you kind of stick your finger in, and it's able to measure the level of carotenoids in your skin, which is a biomarker for your fruit and vegetable intake. So it's a really cool way that we can actually measure the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables that people are eating in their diet. So we know nationally that Americans don't eat enough fruits and veggies, but then when we're able to look at kind of that national average and then compare it to people that are receiving emergency food assistance, it's even below the national average. So there is a real deficit in their diet, and so that's kind of where we try to come in, kind of in that emergency food system, stopping that gap. The sad thing about hunger and food insecurity is, it is an uphill battle. There are a lot of different things going on currently that are trying to reduce people's access to benefits like SNAP, which if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a supplemental nutrition assistance program, which actually only provides people for about $4 a day, I think is kind of the added benefit that it provides, which is not really enough for, a whole meal hardly. So that's getting reduced. I think that the wage gap is continuing to increase in our country. And so unfortunately, we're making progress, but there's still a lot more progress to be made.
You rely on those volunteers. How can folks who are interested connect with you if they want to volunteer?
Yeah, so we actually just have a brand new website that we're very excited about, and hopefully it's very easy and fun to navigate, and that is aftertheharvestkc.org. You can actually sign up for a gleaning on the website. You can contact me directly. We have a couple of different programs for volunteers. So the gleaning starts in May, and that usually runs May through November. We take all kinds of groups, and I want to say it's all ages, which I know know is something really exciting for families that have maybe young kids they want to get involved
Sure,
in.
they want to be involved.
Yeah, they want to come out and dig in the dirt and help do something good for their community. So we take families and individuals. We work with school groups. We work with corporate groups. It's a really great team building experience. So really, anyone is invited to come out and help us. It's very inclusive. And then we also use volunteers to, Zach mentioned earlier, pick up produce at the farmer's market when the farmer's market closes and the farmer maybe hasn't sold everything. Rather than packing it up and taking it back home with them, they have the opportunity to donate it to us, and then we deliver it to a pantry.
Is that also that May to November kind of time frame?
It's a little bit earlier. Markets are going to start in April.
They'll start
I
in
think.
April, and then they usually wrap up, about late October, November.
Okay. And you have gleaning and produce pickup?
Yeah, and we also have a new program called Yambassadors, which is just our fun way of saying it's volunteers that are really interested in doing some more of that community engagement. That is all year round. So if you're interested in advocacy work, if you're interested in helping us kind of get out into the community and spread the word about what we do, we meet monthly right now, and that's another really great way to get involved.
Thank heaven for you guys. You're bringing nutritious food to so many folks with your efforts, and what a team building thing for families or groups or organizations. Again, it's After the Harvest, and aftertheharvestkc.org, or you can call Mariah and Zach. Maybe you can even get in on the Vegemeter.
Yeah, that would be
wow,
so great.
a Vegemeter. We got to find out more about that Vegemeter.
It's really fun. It's a really cool tool to be able to really, measure exactly what people are getting in their diet. So it's very cool.
Thank you for being with us and sharing your story.
Thank you for having
yeah.
us. This has been great.